Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for being here. My name is Max. I am the CEO of Because Bitcoin, and I'm also an Andy enthusiast and an Andy holder. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. Normally, well, let me put it this way. In the past, we have run spaces sort of midweek, either like a Wednesday or a Thursday, where basically I use my platform and my media company to help basically curate a space for all of the Andy community to come and hang out. I give some of my thoughts on the market, what I'm seeing out there, what I'm not seeing out there. We invite a lot of community members up at the end to come and speak and hang out. It's usually a really great time. I've been so damn busy lately with life and work. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on with BB, and I've been slacking. I've been slacking on the spaces. And the truth is, that will be no more. We're going to be doing a lot more of this, especially as I believe the market is at a very important inflection point and fork in the road. It is extremely important now more than ever for the Andy Army to remain a tight group and a committed group. And I want to be there every step of the way for you guys and use my reach to kind of bear hug everybody and bring everybody in. It's nice and cozy on the inside. So, um, anyways, we're doing things a little bit differently today. All right, let me just make sure the stream looks good real quick. We're doing things just a little bit differently today. All right, normally, like I said, we are on X. And today we are actually on YouTube. And I guess technically I have this on X as well. So maybe some of you are watching it there. But basically, we are on X we're on X and YouTube right now. And I think one area that I've struggled with a little bit is my main objective with what I'm trying to provide for the Andy Army as a community member is I want the Andy community to be one of the most educated communities on the planet, right? A lot of people that are involved in meme coins, they pop up these Twitter spaces and the whole thing is rah, rah, rah. Look how funny our meme is. We're so based and cool. Like, that's great and all, but no one's learning anything and it's very subjective. What I want to provide for the Andy community, given my skill set and my platform, is I want the Andy holders to be some of the most educated holders of any meme coin out there, because an educated community is a wealthy one. Um, and if you understand what to look for and you understand why the market is moving the way that it is, you will not feel the pressure when the market pulls back, and you won't feel the euphoria when the market is outperforming, right? So I want to be a resource, and at a minimum, beyond making some money this cycle with Andy, my hope is that you will reflect back on this stream, some of the other spaces we've done, any of the content that we've done, and you'll say, not only did I make money and I meet some cool people at the same time, but I have some skills that I believe will translate over and last me through my investing journey, as long as that may be. So, we're going to go over a lot of different things today, because this isn't just about Andy anymore, right? I'm going to give a little bit of background, right? But you know, this is not a little tiny, it can do whatever it wants kind of meme coin anymore. Some of these meme coins that pop up that are brand new, they catch that early hype and then they die off and they never come back, or they don't pump twice or even three times, whatever. Um, and it's sort of the attention economy, right? It's a hot ball of money, and where there's attention, and where something is new and shiny and sparkly, it will attract liquidity. But the question is, will that liquidity remain and stay? And does the market actually have a longer standing interest or motivation to invest and hold money in a product or a vehicle, like a lot of these meme coins we're seeing right now? And the answer to most of them is no. Andy has answered that question as yes. There is going to be, and there is already provable, long-standing speculative interest and fervor into something like Andy. Andy started out, it's one of the four boys club members, right? You got Pepe, who's the king. Pepe's certainly poised to be sort of the king, large cap, mega cap meme of this cycle. You can see the writing on the wall right now. Exchanges are listing it. But then you also have something like Brett, right? Based Brett. which is now a $1 billion meme. It's dominating base. It's basically acting as like base tokens. So you kind of have these two mega cap, like they're gonna be multi-deca billion-dollar memes, Pepe and Brett, which both originate from Matt Fury's Boys Club. And then you have two smaller members of the Boys Club right now. And we'll talk about potentially closing that gap later in the stream. But then you also have Andy and you have Landwolf, right? So you've got these four Boys Club members, and I have no doubt that the Boys Club narrative is going to be the hottest narrative of this meme cycle, without question. I can see the correlations in front of me. I'm going to present you with all the evidence and all the data. But there is some serious interest in this narrative. And I believe you're going to eventually, in the not too distant future, see a sort of refocusing and reconcentration of right now scarce, but soon to be not so scarce liquidity into legitimate projects that have legitimate narratives. And they're always going to have that general market speculation, right? And that's something that the beauty of the boys club is, hey, Pepe goes up. What about the other boys club members? Right. So because of the way that this cycle has shaped up, and we've seen an early rise from, a couple memes, Pepe and now Brett on base, you're seeing that translate over into, a really legitimate narrative that I believe is going to shock a lot of people. Some of you listening, probably not. You've probably been in this stuff for a little bit. And you're like, let's go preach that shit, Max. Let's roll. But I think it's going to be looked back on as one of the hottest, and I believe this will extend into multiple cycles. I do. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But anyways, enough of that. Let me check some comments. Let's do some talking. Let's talk about some charts. Let me pull up a chart. We're going to talk about Andy too, but I want to, because like I said, right? Like Andy was and still is, it's the underdog, right? It's an underdog. It's a Cinderella story, right? Community owned, community funded. The community raised like over $500,000 already for exchange listings. No wallets set aside for marketing or listings or anything like that. Everything that Andy has accomplished has come through like the blood, sweat, and tears of the community, you know? And we're going to talk about all that, right? But Andy, yet, I mean, it's still an underdog in one regard, but it's not like it's some 5 million market cap, like trying to get it off the floor kind of ticker. Like Andy with the broader market has corrected recently, and it's chilling at like 70 to 80 million market cap during like the belly of this local correction, which is an outrageous one, right? Which we're going to talk about. So it's kind of graduated, right? It's kind of graduated into a different class, and we're going to talk about all that. But let me just check some comments here real quick. All right, make sure we're looking good. All right, welcome guys. What's up? How we doing? Yeah, guys, little reminder, like let's smash that like button. All right. Do me a favor, like if you want to do your part in helping get this content out, all you got to do is hit that thumbs up button. Like hit that thumbs up button. If you're on Twitter, hit the heart button and then hit the retweet button. That's literally all you have to do. I'll do all the yapping. I'll show all the charts, but like you want to do your part for the boys club. You want to do your part for the Andy Army. Share it. That's all you got to do. Really, really easy. All right. Yeah. Welcome, guys. We're looking good. I see a lot of regulars in here. Fantastic, guys. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so we're gonna do like a really general, like kind of market update. I want to share a couple things with you, like this chart that I have in front of you, and then we're gonna kind of work our way backwards, okay? Because you have to understand that like Andy, like I've mentioned so many times, is it has graduated, and you can't just post a chart about Andy at 1 million and then like everyone will find out about it and it's going to get like, a lot of attention. It's now synced up with majors, right? So in order for Andy to do well, we need Bitcoin to do well. The reason we need Bitcoin to do well is because Andy won't perform well if ETH doesn't perform well because Andy is ETH beta. So we're going to talk about the potential conditions in front of us, which is why we're interested in Andy. So this is an interesting chart. I tweeted this out the other day, so some of you have probably seen this. But Bitcoin is doing like more or less what it has always done. All right. So what we're looking at right now, let me just hide this real quick. Okay. What we're looking at right now is we have global M2, which is in the green down below, and we have Bitcoin above, right? So why should we be bullish crypto? That's the first question that you have to ask is why should I be bullish crypto? Okay, so what is M2? I'm going to read you the definition, okay? M2 is the US Federal Reserve's estimate of the total money supply, including all the cash people have on hand, plus all the money deposited in checking accounts, saving accounts, and other short term saving vehicles, such as CDs. Okay. Now, this is not just US M2. This is global M2. So I don't know exactly what's in this equation, but probably the largest, the largest central banks in the world, the collective M2s of the large, like it's probably excluding some of the smaller companies or not companies, countries, but this is not just the US, this is global. And this is important to look at and recognize, hey, I shouldn't just be looking at US liquidity conditions. I should be looking at global liquidity conditions and global monetary policy because Bitcoin and crypto is a global asset. You guys are watching from all over the world right now. You guys are watching not just from the US. Some of you are all over the place. It's probably 4 in the morning somewhere for you guys watching this right now. Okay. So what are we seeing right now? Kind of similar to previous cycles, right? You'll see Bitcoin tops a little bit before global M2. There's a bit of a lag to it, but then M2 will actually go into price discovery before Bitcoin gets back up into price discovery. So look, right here, November 2019, global M2 in price discovery happened before Bitcoin went into price discovery. Right now, global M2 in price discovery basically all of this year so far. Bitcoin has kind of gone into price discovery. I would say that it really hasn't yet. Okay. I would say that we kind of swept the previous all time high, but this is not price discovery. Price discovery is when Bitcoin does a parabola. Like this is nothing. This is reaccumulation. We have to patiently wait. But right now, the important thing to note is that global M2 is ramping up. This is starting, and it's starting right as it has in the previous 2 cycles, um, which is very encouraging, right? So why should we be bullish crypto? Well, there you have it, right? Global M2 is on the rise. I think it makes a really compelling and interesting case. Handful of other reasons, but we do need to like keep it moving, right? Because if I just talk about why Bitcoin is bullish and I give you every reason, we'll be here for a long time. We'll be here for 5 hours. So we need to work our way down the chain because ultimately we're here to talk about Andy, right? So we need to get to Andy. Why am I bullish Bitcoin? That's the first question. Why am I bullish cryptos? Because I'm bullish Bitcoin. Global liquidity is on the rise. Okay. Now, additionally, I'm going to add a couple other like little charts onto here. Okay. So we're going to put IWM up here as well. This is one of my favorite comparisons. So IWM is the Russell 2000 ETF. And for those that don't know what this is, the Russell 2000, the Russell 2000 is small caps in the US. It's all your shitcos. It's like, it's the altcoin index of the stock market. Okay. So I'll label this for you guys real quick. Okay. Now, one thing you'll notice here, and I'm going to just mark this out real quick, is when small caps begin to outperform, right? And when small caps go into price discovery, what happens? All right, I'll just do something like this. All right, and now I'm going to mark out the previous all-time highs for Bitcoin as well, so we can mark out when Bitcoin has actually gone into price discovery. All right, here we go. Beautiful. So you can see I've got the previous all-time highs marked out here for Bitcoin and then also small cap stocks in the US. I also have global M2 down below. What do you notice about the timing of this? Okay. Now I'm going to take these. So we'll leave these blue lines. I'm going to add some more. We're going to mark out when the Russell 2000 IWM has gone into price discovery. And we're going to mark it with we'll just do like a red line. All right. See that red line right there? That's when IWM has gone into price discovery. And then when Bitcoin has gone into price discovery, we'll mark it with orange. Hopefully you guys can see that. Here, I'll make it thicker. Here we go. All right, perfect. So Russell goes into price discovery in red. Bitcoin goes in price discovery in orange. Okay. Now we're going to mark out the last cycle as well. Russell goes into price discovery right here. And then here's Bitcoin, right? Now, neither one has happened yet, right? But we're beginning to see the conditions that are appropriate for a major small cap and crypto bull market if this cycle is at all comparable to previous cycles, right? And what we'll notice here is, yeah, there was like a little, kind of like bleep, little deviation or whatever recently for IWM, but Bitcoin's hanging out under the previous cycle all-time high, like it was a little bit more so in like 2016, 2017, with global M2 leading both small cap stocks and crypto once again, as it's done in the previous two cycles. So something I'd be looking for here pretty soon is for, again, like we'll want to see these indexes, and we'll want to see Bitcoin continue to work its way up into price discovery and then trail, global liquidity just like it has. Because look, I've got this, the blue line is when global M2 has gone into price discovery. So global M2 price discovery, then you have IWM, then you have Bitcoin. Global M2 price discovery, then you have IWM, then you have Bitcoin. It's never going to be perfect, but the point of me showing you this is like there are some very specific and recognizable signals that we've seen in previous cycles. It's always possible that this time is somehow different, but I believe given especially where Bitcoin is hanging out, which is just like wedged between 55 and 70K, we'll say, for 5 months now, while global M2 is slowly but surely climbing into price discovery, we've seen these conditions before. We've seen these conditions before. So I'm going to remove this. We're going to pull up another Bitcoin chart here, okay? Because I need to thoroughly and sufficiently answer the question, why are we bullish crypto here? Right? Like, why are we bullish crypto here? And you can only be bullish crypto if you're bullish Bitcoin. Your altcoin, Andy included, will not move. It will not go crazy unless Bitcoin goes crazy. That I promise you. ETH won't go crazy. Sol won't go crazy. Andy won't go crazy. Nothing will go crazy unless Bitcoin gives it that trigger, which is Bitcoin and price discovery. So we need to talk about Bitcoin first, and then we're going to work our way down the chain, okay? Because Bitcoin still is the king. All right, I saved some of these drawings in advance. So in a very, very, very simple way, we're going to put up the Bitcoin halvings, okay? Here are the Bitcoin halvings. I need to remove, kind of cuts off the top. Let me just get rid of these. All right. Here's all the Bitcoin halvings marked out, right? Ultra high time frame. We'll even zoom in a little bit more. First halving, second halving, third halving, most recent halving. You can typically see here that like there's a little bit of a lull. I'm actually going to zoom in and we're going to look at it. Going back to the first Bitcoin halving, and these dates, they move a little bit, but they should be within like a day. Here's the first halving. Okay, Bitcoin was literally 15 bucks. Here was the amount of time that it took for Bitcoin after the halving to really kind of ramp up and go into price discovery. Now, I don't even like using this first halving as an example because Bitcoin was literally $15, but it took, it took a couple months, 2 to 3 months, okay? We're going to keep going. We'll go to the next cycle. For Bitcoin to go into price discovery, I would say Bitcoin didn't really go into price discovery after the second halving, which was like the beautiful 2016 and 2017 parabola. It was like right here. I know we kind of like got above that previous all-time high. This is the previous all-time high, and then here's the halving. This time it took 290 days. I would say this was like the real start. This was still like junky price action right here. I would say the real start was right in here. Okay. So 290 days from the halving until when Bitcoin really decided to like, let's go. Let's blow the top off this thing. Let's keep moving. How about last cycle? Let's mark out the previous all-time high. When does Bitcoin go into price discovery? Well, here's the halving. You can see very clearly. There's the previous cycle all-time high. Let's take a measured move. 219 days. All right, so far, and I don't even like the first cycle because it was so tiny. Actually, I don't even have that marked out correctly. What am I doing? Sorry. I don't even have that marked out right. Let me go back. I don't know what I was doing there. It's a little bit longer. Still don't love it, right? It's like Bitcoin was literally 30 bucks, but we'll use it. So far we have, after the Bitcoin halving, it took 113 days in the first cycle for Bitcoin to really decide it was going to move. 2 cycles ago, 2016, 2017, it took 290 days roughly. Last cycle, 219. Where are we at right now? Where are we at? Let's mark out the previous all-time high. I'm not counting this as price discovery, by the way. This is not price discovery. This is garbage. This is chop. So let's see where we're at right now. All right. Let's take a measured move from the halving. So far, it's been 114 days. Are you feeling discouraged yet? Are you feeling discouraged? The previous 2 cycles, it took 291 days and 219 days. Are you feeling discouraged? Maybe we're doing this, right? We could. This has definitely been a cycle of firsts, right? One thing that I notice about this cycle compared to previous cycles is that, for one, we made an all-time high before the Bitcoin halving. Like, look, we made an all-time high before a Bitcoin. Here's the Bitcoin halving. We made an all-time high, technically speaking, before Bitcoin halving. Here was last cycle. Nowhere near. 2 cycles ago. Nowhere near, right? Nowhere near, not even close. First cycle. Nowhere near, right? So there are little distinct differences that would potentially suggest, like, you know what? We could be ahead of schedule, right? And we might not have to wait another 100 days or something like that. I mean, you could very easily do this, right? And be like, yeah, like from that high, we front ran the halving. This was an ETF pump. Like, we're already 150 days into it. We should start climbing. That's possible too, right? Like, I won't tell you that it's impossible. I'm just presenting you with the data, right? And the data right now is telling you to sit on your hands, right? Like, this is telling you to sit on your hands, because if we don't go on to like really go and do aggressive price discovery for, let's just say, another few months or something, which would be, in my opinion, grueling, right? Because it's already been 5 months of sitting here. So I kind of don't think it'll be that long. I think it might be sooner than people think. But if you had gotten shaken out, right in here because you're like, oh, we're not moving, or right in here, 2013, oh, we're not moving. Or how about, oh, the third Bitcoin halving was a failure. Look at the drop we just had. This is terrible price action. I mean, look at, like, this data shouldn't discourage you. It should encourage you to basically, like, if this pattern is going to continue and if we are going to go up, which I think we should, right? Based on historical trends and historical patterns, this is the accumulation window. Like right here for like the next 60 days, potentially, if you're that lucky, this is the accumulation window. That's it. This is the accumulation window, is right after the Bitcoin halving. You typically get a shakeout. You look to deploy, right? It's that simple. All right, let me remove these drawings. We're going to add on another little thing here. We are going to add on the US elections. All right. This is one of my favorite charts. I just made a video on this, but I want to show you guys again. We are starting this stream by answering the question, why are we bullish crypto? Right? Why are we bullish crypto? All right. What do we notice here? Let's go down a little bit. We're going to go to the first cycle. For one, the first Bitcoin halving in the US presidential election happened almost on the same day. What do you notice about this? Bitcoin has a bear market. I mean, again, I don't like the first cycle because it's like Bitcoin was so cheap, but Bitcoin has a cycle, drops down, puts in a low, chop, 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 kind of like slowly grinds its way up. It's moving up, right? It's in red, but it's moving up. US presidential election. And then Bitcoin basically goes on to have price discovery in a bull market for 386 days, so just over a year. Get the halving, you get the election. How about 2 cycles ago? Bitcoin halving, US presidential election, 406 days of a bull market after the US presidential election. Grinding up into it, 406 days. So first cycle was 386, 406. So again, just over a year. How about last cycle? Bitcoin halving in black, US presidential election in blue. Grinding up. This is grinding up. I know you had like, a lot of chop and stuff, but like we were moving up without a question. We were moving up. And then 366 days until the Bitcoin global top. So almost a year exactly. So in the 3 previous cycles, if you were buying basically between the Bitcoin halving and the US presidential election and you just held for 1 year, you would have outperformed like 99.99% of traders. Here's the data. It's like, why are we bullish crypto? Well, there is a cyclical trend that has very clearly presented itself in front of us, right? And here it is. The timing of it will never be perfect, right? Like every cycle has little granularities and intricacies that are different, but here's your pattern, right? Like grind up into the election and buy sometime between the Bitcoin halving and the US presidential election. That's the data. That's the trend. Like ignoring everything else, right? Like ignoring all the macro, like everything. Like what do we see every time? These lines need to go. Hang on here. Oh, it was syncing up the charts. All right, well, what do we see here? Here, let me remove this. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, all right, let me just do this then. I'll just remake this real quick on the bottom. It's fun. So what do we like? That looks pretty brutal. All right, you get the point. That's fine. What do we get every single time? Every single time there's a Bitcoin halving and a presidential election, you get global M2. Oops. That is not what we want. This is what we want. All right, hang on. You get global M2 on the rise, trending up in price discovery, heading into the Bitcoin halving and presidential election. The time to buy, historically, if this trend is going to continue, to buy crypto, to get exposure to crypto, this is it. Here's your evidence. Like I've presented it to you as clearly as I possibly can. It's all happening exactly the same, and then there's all this like, this noise around it, right? There's always like, and here's the thing that I think a lot of people maybe forget is that there's always way more reasons to be bearish than bullish. Like there's always some like crap going on in the world. There's always tension between 2 countries, or there's always some like job scare, or there's always, I don't know, some politician causing drama. Like there's always, if you were to and I see this with a lot of people. Like if you were to not focus on some of the more important cyclical trends and just hyper focus on like a couple data points, right? And the scary data points. And I'm with you, scary data points, right? They shouldn't be ignored. Um, you would basically be a deer in the headlights and you would never bid and deploy and hold through volatility because you'd see these guys on Twitter doom posting being like, it's all over. This was the everything bubble. Like everything is going to zero. And you would literally never invest, even though you have global M2 on the rise. And you know that typically, the year following a US presidential election, regardless of who takes office, regardless, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, whether it's a new incumbent running or the existing incumbent stays in office, it doesn't matter. It's just that the office turns over or even stays the same. And also Bitcoin halving and the mechanics for Bitcoin halvings, you know, on any given day, one of your potential largest sellers of Bitcoin is a Bitcoin miner. And when a Bitcoin miner, um, basically from one day to the next, has their minor block rewards cut in half, then there's a pretty large and measurable sell pressure potentially removed from the ask side of the books. Now, granted, a lot of the sell-offs right around the Bitcoin halving are from Bitcoin miners prepping for the Bitcoin halving, but eventually things kind of work themselves out and Bitcoin appreciates and Bitcoin mining becomes profitable again. So, I'm trying my best to like drown out a lot of the data points that I think are just they're important, but I think that they're overblown and given too much weight because like the cyclical trend is up from here. Here's the data. Like why are we bullish crypto? Well, here you go. Here's part of the reason, right? Here's part of the reason. We're going to start working our way down the chain a little bit here, guys. Let me just check in on some comments real quick. See how we're doing. Make sure we're still live and I'm not talking into the abyss. All right. Yeah, it looks like we're doing well here, guys. All right. Nice turnout today, guys. Thanks for showing up. Do me a solid if you can. Like I said, if you want to help, just hit that thumbs up button for me, guys. Hit that thumbs up button if you're watching on X. Hit the heart button. Hit the retweet button. All right. It's really easy. It costs $0 and it just takes a second. I'm here doing all the yapping. All you got to do is just hit that heart button, hit that retweet button. So I believe I believe that we have so far, we have answered the question like, why are we bullish, right? Why would we be bullish crypto? All right. And I think this does a pretty good job of keeping it a little simple, right? Like we covered a lot of things, got a lot of colors to look at, but in a very general high time frame look. I'm not talking about is Bitcoin going to be higher or lower than this next week. I'm talking about, you know, 400 days from now. What does the trend tell us? And here it is. Right? I'm not talking about 1 week. I'm talking about positioning from now through the next year. If there's going to be a decade worth of a trend that continues this time, and this time is not different, why are we bullish crypto? All right. Now, we're going to work our way down a little bit here, guys. Thanks for the likes. Looks like we just cracked 200 on YouTube. We got 330 watching. How are we doing on Twitter? I haven't even checked Twitter. Let's see. Oh, beautiful, man. 91 likes on Twitter. That's great. 30 retweets. You guys are animals. You guys are absolute animals. Thanks for the support, guys. The Andy Army appreciates you. All right. All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving down the train here. So, let's oh man. All right, what do I even want to do with this chart quick? Here's what I'm going to do with this chart. I'm going to close this chart. I don't want to look at it anymore. That's too much. That's too much. We're going to open up a new one here. Open up a. All right. And now we're going to move over to Ethereum. Okay. Now, this is where things get really important. Okay. This is where things get really, really important. We're going to talk about why that is. Remove the alert line. We don't need that. All right. So when does Ethereum typically perform well, guys? When does Ethereum typically perform well? Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this first. We're going to put up BLX. I want to show you when ETH typically performs well. Now, the reason I'm going to show you why ETH typically performs well is because in order for Andy to do well, you need ETH to do well. In order for ETH to do well, you need Bitcoin to do well. We just talked about why we think Bitcoin's going to do well. Okay. Now we're going to work our way down the chain here. So here's Bitcoin up top. And what we're going to do is we're going to put ETH USD down below. Okay. Here we go. We'll make the chart look nice and pretty. Hopefully you guys, I published a free BB Academy course too. A lot of you guys will ask me from time to time, like, hey, how do you get your charts to look the way that they do? Like, I love how your charts look. And I published a free trading view course on how to do that. So you guys should check that out as well. I think there's probably a link to BB Academy down in the description. So when we're done here, if you guys want to learn how I do all my charting and make them look the way that they do, again, it's totally free. We hit 20,000 on YouTube, and I wanted to just do a little thank you. So put that together for you guys. It's like maybe like an hour, a little bit longer than an hour course. So yeah, it's pretty great. Like I went into like a lot of detail on how to make your charts look sexy. So let's keep moving here. So we're going to talk about, actually, I'm going to move that back down real quick. We're going to talk about when ETH is going to start performing well. Okay. Which again is, of course, contingent upon Bitcoin. So let's mark out the previous all-time highs here for Bitcoin. All right. Previous cycle all-time highs for Bitcoin. And then we are going to move ETH up. And I'll just do it this way. It's fine. So now we have Bitcoin up top and we have ETH just below it. All right. Now I want to mark out when ETH has really started to perform well. Okay. And pretty clearly it's like right here, right? We'll say like this is when ETH just went crazy. Like the time to hold ETH right here went from like, and you could pick any spot. You can go here, you can go here. It doesn't really matter, right? But you want this move. The reason to hold ETH is you want to outperform Bitcoin. Like if you're not going to outperform Bitcoin with anything, just hold Bitcoin. It's really simple. Bitcoin is the safest, most time tested, most decentralized, most infrastructure built around it. Just hold Bitcoin, right? But if you're a trader and you're looking to outperform, make sure that you're outperforming Bitcoin. And then the real question is like, what's the timing? Where do the probabilities align and stack up so that we have the greatest potential chance to outperform Bitcoin, right? And that's what we're talking about. And it starts with Bitcoin going into price discovery, and then it starts with ETH following, and then it works further down the chain. And we're going to get to Andy. But in order to understand Andy, you need to understand the higher time frame cycles first, okay? So here's ETH down below. I'll just, I changed the colors so you guys should be able to easily recognize it, but I will label it as well. There's Bitcoin. All right, so Bitcoin up top, ETH down below, and these horizontal lines are when Bitcoin, basically it's Bitcoin cycle tops, okay? And then this, we'll actually just make this blue for ETH. This blue line is when you've wanted to hold ETH against Bitcoin, right? Because right here, ETH went from $10 to 1,200. That's pretty good. Let's keep it moving. How about last cycle? Bitcoin goes into price discovery. ETH went from looks like $500 all the way up to almost 5,000, right? Just a little under 4,800. All right. And Bitcoin at that time went from, 20,000 to just under 70,000, right? So what are we potentially looking at right here? Maybe the same thing, right? Maybe the same thing. And just another way to look at this is actually just putting up the ETH BTC chart. This is actually Ethereum divided by Bitcoin. For those that don't know, this is one of my favorite charts. It's been bleeding a lot recently. But from a higher time frame cycle perspective, like when does ETH BTC, which is ETH denominated in Bitcoin, if this chart is moving up like this, that means ETH's outperforming Bitcoin. If it's moving down, it's the opposite. Bitcoin's outperforming ETH. ETH is outperforming Bitcoin here. And for the past 2 years plus, it's been more than 2 years, Bitcoin has been a better hold than Ethereum, right? I'm not talking about ETH beta. I'm talking about both L1s, right? Bitcoin versus literal Bitcoin versus literal ETH. I'm not talking about any like beta plays or anything like that, okay? So here's ETH BTC down below. I mean, you can see from this pair that typically when Bitcoin goes into price discovery, which is right around here, you can see that the ETH BTC pair begins to, really ramp up. And then once, Bitcoin right around here, right? Like right around here, this is when, things get wild. Like this is when you want to be in Ethereum versus Bitcoin, as right as Bitcoin is tucked underneath that previous cycle all-time high and reaccumulating. And here, I'm just going to put on a Bitcoin there must be a halving indicator. I've used one before. Here. Okay, kind of an ugly yellow, but I just wanted to throw the Bitcoin halvings on here quickly to show you guys as well. This is basically what's happened every single time. Here, I'll mark them out. I don't like that yellow, and we want it to go all the way down. All right, there's one. There's two. There's 3 Bitcoin halvings, good enough, and then we will remove these. So the orange lines are the Bitcoin halvings. And then the blue line is when ETH BTC begins to outperform Bitcoin. So similarly to like the last chart that we looked at, which is, the best time to buy Bitcoin, or why we get really bullish Bitcoin, the best time to buy Bitcoin, if you want to just like buy it and hold it for like 400 days or just over a year, is basically between the halving and the election, right? So here we are right here, Bitcoin halvings. I'll just label them. I'm a perfectionist. I need it to be super, super clean. Here's halving. Why did that go to the downside here? Just do this. All right. There you go. So here's your halvings. And then the election, the first election was like basically right here at the halving. I'll just mark this and I'll mark that in red. And then the previous election, I'll just get the date right, was November 4th, 2016. Oh, wait, that's the one that I just did. Hang on. November 6th, 2016. Here we go. Right here. So that was the election there. And then in 2020, the date of the election, we'll say November 8th, 2020. Right around here. So actually, if history tells us anything, and this hasn't happened yet, so I'll just mark the election out. Here's November of this year. If history tells us anything, it's that buying Ethereum, actually, rather than Bitcoin, even though I have this chart for you, buying Ethereum sometime between the Bitcoin halving, which is in orange, and the election, which is in red, actually has yielded some pretty tremendous outperformance against Bitcoin the king in the previous cycles, right? Here's the evidence, right? So that would mean ETH will begin to outperform, relatively soon, right? Like maybe it's earlier, maybe it's later, but like this is your window right here. I'm going to mark this out in green. Like this is your ETH accumulation window. Right here. Your ETH accumulation window is now until the election, right? And then you basically just hold it for like, 9 months. That's the cycle. There's a million ways to overcomplicate it, but that's the higher time frame trend, right? That's the high time frame trend. All right, let me just check in on the stream real quick. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we've already established why we're bullish Bitcoin, right? We've got halvings, we've got elections, we've got global liquidity on the rise, right? Now we've established why we should actually be more bullish Ethereum right now, basically now through the end of the next, basically now through the next year, roughly. Okay, give or take. Now we've established why we're bullish Bitcoin, and we've established additionally why, historically speaking, we should be more bullish seasonally on Ethereum than Bitcoin. Okay. Now, we need to talk about beta. All right. We need to talk about beta. So what we're going to do, we're going to clear all the drawings. Okay. We're going to clear all the drawings. We're going to reset our chart. We're actually going to put ETH BTC back up, right? So we just talked about why we're bullish Bitcoin. Therefore, we should be bullish Ethereum seasonally. Now, let's go back through some previous cycles to see when like mania has really commenced, right? And up until this cycle, there's really only been like one king meme coin, which was Doge. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Doge down below. Doge is the Bitcoin of meme coins. I hope you understand what I mean when I say that. And Doge literally is kind of a fork of Bitcoin as well. Like it's a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. Kind of strange, but I think you get the point. It's decentralized. It's proof of work. It's been around longer than Ethereum, right? Which is crazy. But there's been a few instances in time when Doge has basically just gone nuts. And what's been the trigger for that? What is the trigger for Doge going nuts? Which up until this cycle has been like, when you want to go crazy, you buy Doge, right? Like when you think the market is reaching like peak froth, peak mania, you've bought Doge historically. This cycle, I think it's actually a little bit different. It's a little bit diluted. I actually think there's other things you can buy, which is partially why we're here. Would you look at this? We're going to mark out when ETH BTC starts going crazy. So there's your bottom. Beautiful. All right. So let's look at the previous two cycles. Cycle one. Here's Doge down below. Here's ETH BTC up top. We just went over what that is. This is when this is moving up, this top chart. I'll actually do this. Ethereum blue and Bitcoin orange. You guys like that? When it's going up, they're nice ETH blue candles. When they're going down, Bitcoin candles, right? Because that means Bitcoin's outperforming. So when this chart is going up, ETH is outperforming Bitcoin. Look at what happens to risk, to beta, to meme coins when ETH BTC goes crazy. ETH BTC is not just, it's not just evaluating how is Ethereum doing against Bitcoin. What ETH BTC is doing is telling you the market's ready to go risk on. It's an oscillator at this point. And some people will argue, oh, well, that's Solana this cycle. You could be right, but I think it's too early to say. I think Solana is going to do really well also, but I do believe that this will prevail once again, in that when we see ETH BTC begin to rally, you will start to see the whole market go risk on. All right. So first cycle, Doge basically went from 0.000021 up to 0.004. I need to move this down and take a measured move. It's going to be crazy. Hang on. Okay. So when ETH BTC in the first cycle went crazy, Doge immediately followed, went up 2000% in 3 months. And to the actual global top, it went up almost 10,000%. Okay. 10,000% in that year following, right? We've talked about that year before, right? Here's your year. You buy in the red, specifically your last window of time to accumulate is between the halving and the election. Then you get a year, historically speaking. Okay. Here's your year. ETH BTC goes crazy. Doge, which is again, ETH BTC is your risk on gauge. Doge is an individual ticker that is like the king beta. At least historically, that's what it's been. This cycle, it might be different. How about last cycle? How about last cycle? Doge, when ETH BTC put in a high time frame pivot and actually went up, and ETH BTC tripled in like no time. Yeah, ETH BTC tripled in like 4 to 5 months. Okay. Look at when ETH BTC puts in a high time frame pivot and begins to outperform. Look what happened to Doge. 18,000% in 4 months off of the back of ETH BTC being the trigger. Pretty crazy. All right, so what could we potentially expect this cycle, right? All right, well, there's a lot more meme coins this cycle, but ETH BTC hasn't started to like really aggressively outperform yet. So here's our ETH BTC outperformance line, right? I think that pivot is coming very soon if we haven't already just had it, right? You're going to continue to see the same pattern play over and over and over again, in my opinion. Bitcoin will lead. Bitcoin's a better hold, except for like 6 months every 4 years. Then you want to hold beta. Then you want to go risk on. Wait, what's going on here? Let me see some comments. What is going on here? Who's Rugan? What is going on? Hang on. Unreal. Thank you, Connor. Okay, hang on. What is this guy saying? Retail, but retail is not here, won't be here through next year. You're looking too much at the technicals and not at the fundamentals. He doesn't deserve any likes if he's going to string you all along like this. Seriously, it's hard to watch. And don't watch, man. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. Yeah, man, Rugen, you're just salty, bro. You're just salty, man. We've been crushing it. Yeah. All right, we're gonna get rid of him. I don't think he's here for the right reasons. I don't think he's actually like constructive. I think he's just kind of trolling. Goodbye, Rugen. It's been a pleasure. All right. No worries, guys. It's just I'm just a guy sharing his opinions. I understand local volatility can be stressful. You know, and every cycle could be different, right? But I'm here providing analysis and my opinions. You don't have to like it. If you disagree, that's totally cool. Like, I actually would love for somebody, like, if you have differing opinions, go to Twitter. I'll look at the stream because it's streaming on X as well. Post your charts, post your analysis, other than just being like, it's never coming. It's over. You're not looking at the fundamentals. No, I promise you, I've looked at all the fundamentals as well. And I promise you, I've looked at all of the at all of it. You know, we don't have time to cover every single like macro indicator, you know. Anyways, all right, let's keep it rolling. Let me get a little bit of water here. All right. So we've established why we are bullish Bitcoin, or why this, historically speaking, has been a good time to be bullish Bitcoin. And then we've also established that basically buying Ethereum instead of Bitcoin between the Bitcoin halving and the US election historically has aged very well. Now we've just given a premier example as to what ETH BTC actually represents. And what ETH BTC actually represents is not just ETH kicking Bitcoins, but performance-wise for a small window of time. What it represents is this market is ready to bid, and it's ready to bid everything under the sun. That's what that means. All right. Now, let's talk about our favorite beta. Let's talk about it all. We'll leave this for now. What we need to do is we need to talk about ETH. I'm going to explain to you something about ETH and Andy. We've already established, we've set the stage for why we are bullish, the things that we are bullish. But now I'm going to show you precisely why Andy moves the way that Andy moves. Now, up top is ETH. We're going to make it blue for Ethereum. Down below, we'll just keep Andy. We'll keep Andy green and red for now. That's fine. And then we'll move it up, okay? Now, what you'll notice about Andy, right, is it's sitting at like between 70 and 80 million, right? And actually what I want to do is so I'm just going to show an Andy chart real quick on like what I'm seeing locally, and then we're going to get back into that example as to why it moves the way that it does. Oh, it's saving my chart colors. That's interesting. Let's put that back to green and red. All right. So Andy, just like most altcoins right now, are pulling back because Bitcoin pulled back, and then ETH pulled back, and then, you know, stocks pulled back, and, you know, that's altcoins, right? That's beta, and I'm going to show you why they're moving the way that they are. But, you know, right below us, we have something that I would consider to be mega demand. And here, I'll redraw this all together. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to draw a volume profile, which gives you X-ray vision into the market. And it shows you where the area of most transacting has occurred, right? So right now, the area on the chart in which most of the transacting has occurred has been this red line. It's called the point of control, all right? And of course, it's basically like all of this right here, accumulation, you know? This was all buying that ultimately led to this, right? Andy pumped from 40 million up to 300 million was the all-time high so far, okay? So in a very short period of time, Andy was scooped up in this accumulation and then rocketed up to 300 million, right? So what we have right here is we have a high time frame demand with a high time frame point of control sitting right below the current level. This is a really nice level, you know, whether we just go up from here and we do something like this, you know, like could see that as well, or, you know, whether we come back, retest the point of control again, this is going to be a hard level to chew through unless ETH literally goes on to make a new low or something like that, which, by the way, I am not expecting. So anyways, quick look at Andy. Additionally, I mean, you could draw something kind of like this, right? Like you have like a little compression happening here, similar to what happened like over here. Just doing this really, really quickly, but I just want to show you. Think of it as like a bouncy ball that's running out of steam, right? It's like you drop a ball on asphalt and it's like boom, 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 and then it runs out of momentum and it has nowhere to go except you have to pick the ball back up so you can bounce it again, right? So that's what happened over here. Bouncy ball, bouncy ball, bouncy ball, nowhere to go. Pick it up, we drop it again. Bouncy ball, bouncy ball, bouncy ball. Pick it up, nowhere to go again, right? It's called, in a technical term, it could be called seller exhaustion, right? But I wanted to share that a little bit. I think it's kind of like an interesting and I would say unique way to look at it. But in my opinion, this is what I'm seeing with Andy right here. Like this is your accumulation region. Okay. Now let's go back to ETH. I want to talk to you guys about why Andy moves the way that it does, right? And then we're gonna string it all back in together. Like, why are we bullish Bitcoin? Why are we bullish ETH? Why are we bullish ETH over Bitcoin? Why would we hold Andy over ETH? We're gonna get into all that. Okay. So let's take a look at the last Andy pump, this one that we were just talking about. Okay. So this here's Andy. And you'll notice, right here, we started pumping, right? Basically, Andy, and I'll mark this out here. From this low to, we'll just call this the high. I don't really think this was I think this was like an MEV bot or something like that. So we're just going to call this the high, but you get the point. All right. So there was our rally, and Andy went up 725%. And that was over 2 weeks, just over 2 weeks. Okay. So plus 7, we'll just do 700%. It was a little bit more in 2 weeks. Okay. And we will put that, on the top. That's fine. All right. Now, what do we notice about ETH right here? Oh, that was right when ETH pumped. Interesting. Okay. How about we do this? Let's move Andy up now. We'll get this organized. All right, here's ETH up top. Here's Andy down below. ETH fires first, ever so slightly. Let me go down to the even lower time frames. ETH fires first, and then right there, once ETH kind of chills out and it has acceptance significantly higher than it is, or it was, because it was at like 3,000 and it marked up to 3,800. Andy went up plus 700% in 2 weeks, right? That was your trigger. Now let's keep moving right here. And I don't even need this anymore. We'll just mark it out, okay? We'll just mark out all the levels. Here we go. Andy right over here in July, ETH popped up a little bit, right? And actually, let me just change this color. This is bugging me. Andy rallied from 80 million to 200 million. And look what happened. ETH just jumped a little bit. Right? Are you seeing the pattern right in front of you? Are you beginning to see the pattern? So what do you think is going to happen next, right? Let's mark this out just a little bit. Okay. ETH goes on to break structure to the upside. Andy fires. ETH goes on to break structure to the upside. Andy fires. The next quote unquote ETH breaking structure to the upside is going to be this level right here. If ETH breaks above 2,800, Andy's going to fire. Really, really simple. Really simple. So it's like, why would you hold, Andy over ETH? Well, let's actually do this. Let's move Andy back down and I'll show you the beta correlation. And I know some of you have seen this already, but I think it serves an important reminder, especially when the market is boring and chopping and ranging and you're just like, do something, right? Let's take measured moves here. So ETH from its low, rallied about 40%, give or take. I'm kind of rounding because we're doing it quickly, but ETH went up 40%. And from its low, I'll just measure it to here. Andy went up, we already know, plus 700%. And then how about right over here? From this low to its high, ETH rallied 26%. And then Andy from its low went up 175%. Okay. So what you're really betting on here is, okay, am I bullish Ethereum because I recognize what happens to Andy when ETH performs well? It is literally that simple. Like it is literally that simple. But of course, the consequences are greater to the downside. Beta goes both ways. Let's take another measured move just to be fair here. Here's ETH when it just pulled back recently. Thank you, Ethereum, for that. Minus 42%. Ugh. Minus 42%. And let us see what Andy did. Minus 75%. How about this one? ETH went down minus 29%, roughly. And Andy went down minus 77%. So I love memes. Memes are funny, right? But what are you really trading here? Do you recognize what you're really trading here now? What you're trading is leveraged Ethereum. I mean, that's it. What you're trading is leveraged Ethereum. Oh, is ETH going to go up? Okay, well then why don't I bet on Andy? Look how tight the correlation is. I mean, look at that. Like you literally just can't make it up. Even like this little move right here, right? I mean, it's just like perfect, you know? So, the big question is like, okay, one, why are we bullish crypto here? All right, we covered that. Then next, actually, I removed the chart, right? Why are we bullish crypto here? We talked about Bitcoin. Bitcoin needs to do well. And then once Bitcoin starts doing well, you accumulate it sometime between the Bitcoin halving and the US presidential election. Historically, it's actually been more prosperous to buy Ethereum rather than Bitcoin. Here's the ETH BTC chart, right? We talked about all that. You buy it somewhere in here, you buy it somewhere in here, you buy it somewhere in here, and you hold it for 9 to 12 months. Right? So we've established why we're bullish Bitcoin, why we're bullish crypto in general. We've also established why we should be, cyclically speaking, more bullish Ethereum than Bitcoin. Okay? At least over the next year. And we've just established the relationship as to why Andy moves the way that it does and what you're actually betting on. So, what do you think is going to happen What do you think is going to happen to Andy when ETH does this? Oops. Yeah, I don't need that. What do you think is going to happen to Andy when ETH goes into price discovery eventually, right? So let's mark this out again right here. Just go from right here, okay? So ETH goes up, Andy goes up. And I'll label these just so you guys don't forget. Here's ETH. Here's Andy. Let's make it gold. What do you think is going to happen if ETH does this? Hypothetically, of course, right? What if ETH does this? What do you think Andy's going to do? Here, let me mark out this one. That's the real question, right? That's the real question. If ETH goes up, do you think Andy's going to go down? I've shown you the correlations. I'll make it colorful for you now. We'll draw it up again. The timing is the same. You just need to have more of a stomach for volatility. And what you're really buying with something like Andy, which is a now premier, confirmed, correlated Ethereum beta play. What you're buying is a long dated, far out of the money call option on Ethereum. Like that is what you're buying. I'm going to explain what that means in a second. Let me just finish doing this. Oh, why is Andy down? Why is Andy down? I don't understand, Max. Why is Andy down? Here's why. You're trading leveraged Ethereum. So the question is like, okay, if you're bullish ETH, like, you think ETH is going to do this? Right? Like, hasn't even gone into price discovery yet. Like, what if it does this? I know it seems like a lot right now, but we already talked about why we should be bullish crypto and then why we should be bullish ETH BTC, cyclically speaking. Like, what do you think's gonna? Do you think that Andy won't go on to do this then, if ETH does? I just showed you why it's most likely going to. I just showed you. Look at this. Come on, what are we talking about here? Crazy. I mean, what are we even talking about here? Oh, Remy, thank you for the super chat. Super kind of you. Super, super kind of you. Thank you so much, Remy. What concerns me is the daily, weekly of Bitcoin, ETH, nuke going into late Q3, macro events, etc. Andy has no real support below 32 million. I see. Yeah, I mean, if there's some like macro blowout or something, you know, and ETH goes to $900, then it's going to be a problem, right? But additionally, one thing that, and then we'll do some TA on Andy here. Actually, let's just do this quick. So Remy, this is We just had kind of a historic drop, and I know it might not seem like it, but it actually was a very, very historic drop. There's been very few times in the history of the market in the past 3 decades when we've basically had a volatility blowout like the one that we just had. The drop that we just had was on par with, um, basically, like, the dot-com crash, 2007, 2008 great financial crisis, some pullbacks that happened during that recovery, the turbulence in 2015 for stocks, 2018, then COVID, and now, right? I'm gonna mark these out really quickly, just to show you what I'm talking about. And if you had bought all of these, like, historically when the VIX spikes above 45, what you would have been buying. I'll mark these out first. So I know it might seem like, oh, like what if something happens? Well, something did just happen. It just happened kind of quickly. And yeah, things could get worse for sure. Um, but I just want to show, like, if you had bought stocks and risk when you had seen a historic VIX spike, which is indicative of tremendous turmoil in TradFi or legacy markets, this is what your purchases would have looked like. And by the way, I have this in log mode. This is what the chart really looks like. So I'm just saying the drop that we just had is on par with all of these horrible, horrible drops, right? The VIX spiked to 65. The only two in the past 3 decades that have been bigger than that was COVID and the great financial crisis. We're number 3, the one that we just had. So, what if something really bad happens? Something really bad just did happen, you know? I guess it's not equivalent to, like, unemployment spiking above, like, you know, 10% or something, but, um, anyways, just showing, like, from a technical side of things, like, if you had bought every major scare in the market to this degree over the past 3 decades, like, this is what your chart would look like. So, when I'm bullish from a technical perspective, right? There's always a million macro reasons to be bearish, like, always. That was something I was saying in the beginning of the stream is, like, the amount of stuff that there is to focus on right now, it could give the most sophisticated of traders and, you know, uh, money managers absolute paralysis, analysis paralysis, deer in headlight syndrome, where they just, oh, well, what if this happens and that looks bad? There's always something going wrong in the world, you know? And yeah, I'm fully aware of, typically what happens when the Fed decides to cut interest rates. I know. I've done the overlays. I'm watching it very, very closely. But I also think it's possible that the market has become more reflexive and more forward looking than it ever has been before. Um, we might be trading 3 years in front of our skis right now. We literally might be. Like, the market may already be pricing in, you know, 5% unemployment and forward looking enough with rates to know that a year and a half from now will, effective federal funds rate will be at 3%. And, it might be forward enough looking because, like, one more thing to note about that too, it's a really good question, is like, I mean, look at how long some of these drops took, right? Like, look at the dot-com crash. Took 900 days, and we had a VIX spike above 45. Volatility blowout, right? Great financial crisis, 500 days, major VIX spike, right? And then you fast forward to, like, recent years, right, when things have hit the fan. How about all this turbulence and chop? 300 days, if you want to, measure them individually, right? You can cut that in half depending on how you want to measure it. But how about COVID? COVID drop took less than 2 months. We'll just say 2 months. These drops, we just don't have bear markets that last 3 to 4 to 5 years anymore, Like, not that we won't ever have them again, but the dips get eaten up quicker. And I believe the market is becoming increasingly more manipulated from the powers that be, uh, where they simply can't let the Ponzi stop. They keep printing money and injecting sort of hidden liquidity into the market in order to keep it propped up. Um, there's no such thing as a natural correction anymore. Eventually, there will be, right? But if you've been betting on a natural correction, meaning a multi-year bear market like we saw in 2000 and 2008, which actually, although they were painful for those that were holding, were actually very healthy longer term. If you've been betting on a natural correction and a much needed one over the past 2 decades, almost decade and a half, I mean, talk about a golden bull run. QE has ramped up. Interest rates have dropped to historically low levels. Not right now, right? But that have caused this chart to look the way that it has. And you now have more foreign investment in our domestic markets here in the US. Like, it's not just mostly highly concentrated, high net worth individuals in the US buying our stocks. Like, you have to look at it on a global picture, right? And, one thing to note about this chart is like this is global M2 right here. Let's look at M2SL. Let's see what the US one looks like. So here's the US M2 chart. Um, so US M2 hasn't gone on into price discovery yet. This is US M2, and this is global M2 right here. Oops. I think I just pulled that chart off. Here we go. So you can see here that global M2 is actually in price discovery and US domestic M2 is not. So I think you need to look at like the whole picture now more than ever. Um, just a different kind of market. Just a different kind of market. But it's a really good question, right? It's just like when you get a VIX spike to 65 and you get, and you get ETH pulling back to, like what did like let's go back to ETH now. I mean, it's kind of hard to look at this, right? But it's like if you had bought the last spike, the last, a scare this big for the VIX, it's like that's kind of what we just got. Like if you're bullish ETH, if you're bullish anything, right? Like if you're bullish risk in general, and you see a volatility blowout like the one that we just had, you take that, you know, you take it. I wasn't expecting it this soon, but you take it, you know. You get an asset like ETH down 50% from its yearly high, you take that. I'm taking it. But to each their own, right? It's risky. Like I get it. There's a lot to look at. And it's not all so beautiful and chipper. But from a technical side of things, let's look at Andy and talk about like where I think it could go. My absolute favorite tool in the world is the fib extension. Look at where we topped on this first rally. Let me move these to the center here. And look at that. That's nice. 2.618. Range high, range low, 2.618. You've also got it nicely in log where you topped in log at the 1.618. Right? So how about where we're at right now? You can maybe draw something like this. I kind of like this, with this being a deviation. I don't know. To each their own, right? We'll have to take a look at it. You could maybe do this. Oh, that's interesting. That's a little too interesting if you ask me. All right, let's mark this out. Here's Andy. Range high, range low. Here was your mid-range. Topped out at the 1.618. Range high, range low. I mean, very, very clear mid-range right here, right? Like pretty clear. Notice how your 1.618 right now is exactly at your first range 2.618. You see that? They're touching. Range high to range low, range high to range low. Your first range 2.618 is this current range is 1.618. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting, guys. Hypothetically, from right here, that would be 1,700%. So that'd take us to about 1.3 billion in market cap. But like if you went up to the 2.618 or this first, range is 3.618, you know, this is going to be your next big level, in my opinion. Like the confluence here is crazy. Like when ETH finally goes into price discovery, so for example, like if ETH can break out of here, and maybe we see like if let's just assume this is our our ETH range, something like this, and you see ETH up here, right? And you could probably make the case it should be right here. That's fine too. But like if this is our ETH range for right now and we're going to break out and eventually, we got a lot of work to do, right? But when that happens, if ETH goes to 5,000 or, 7,500, I mean, I think we've already talked enough about the correlations, right? Like when the rallies really go crazy. I mean, look at right here. It's like, what are you really trading here? What you're trading is 10 times levered Ethereum, So if ETH goes from here to, let's just say the 2.618, that's 200%. If Andy goes from right here to this confluence of the 2.618 and the 1.618, that's 1,700%. Your base, it's 10x, right? And we've already shown the correlation when ETH pumps and then ETH dumps, what happens to Andy, right? So yeah, that's what you're trading, right? It's like all you're debating here really is like, okay, if I think that ETH is in like a deviation zone, right? Like if I think that ETH is in a deviation zone because, we already talked about there was a VIX spike, and then we were talking about, buying Bitcoin between the halving and the election, and how historically that has been solid if it comes coupled with global M2 on the rise. And we talked about, ETH BTC outperformance. If you're bullish ETH and you want to buy, a drop like this, right? A cascade, a 50% drop on ETH, and you're bullish on ETH, I just showed you why you're actually very bullish, Andy, potentially without even knowing it. And you could even argue that, yes, percentage-wise, Andy down more than ETH, right? But what are we talking about here? Like, look at these highs and these lows. Like, what are you talking about here? Look at this chart. Look at the dates. They're lined up. Like, what do you want to make of this, right? Oh, I'm too scared to hold a meme coin. Oh, I don't understand it. I'm helping you understand it. Look at what you're really trading here. Yes, percentage-wise, it can be scary, right? We've already went over when ETH drops, Andy's going to drop harder. When ETH pumps, Andy's going to pump way harder. But given what just happened with Ethereum, it's pretty unbelievable how Andy's holding up. I mean, it's got a real community of people that are educated and understand the product in which they are actually trading. What you're doing is you are buying and I said this earlier, you're buying a long dated, far outdated, far out of the money call option on Ethereum with no expiration date and no theta decay. Now, I know a lot of you probably don't know what that means because a lot of you probably don't trade options, but basically the idea is with options, the biggest villain with buying an option is that you basically have to pay to keep it open. And the closer you get to the expiration date of that option to purchase or to sell, the more expensive it gets to keep it open, and the higher the price of the asset needs to be in order to support your position. All right, and basically what you're doing by buying something like Andy here is just you're making a bet that ETH is going to go up to 5, 6, 7,000, and you just wait. That's literally all you're doing. That's all you're doing by holding Andy is just being like, yep, I'm just going to buy this and hold it until ETH goes to 6 or 7,000, and then I'm going to sell it. And then when ETH drops to 5,000 and I get bullish ETH again, then I'll buy Andy instead because I'm buying a 10 times levered Ethereum without any contango, any decay. Same with an option, no theta decay, no expiration date to worry about. You're just buying levered Ethereum. That's it. Here's my favorite example. Here is my favorite example. Here, let me actually add on one more. I mean, look at what happens when ETH pumps to our beta train, right? I have a tweet about this if you want to find it later. Up top, Pepe. Middle, Andy. Bottom, Landwolf. Boys Club. Study. ETH pumps. ETH pumps. Pepe goes up. Andy goes up. Wolf goes up. And what happens? ETH goes down. What happens to all of them? They all go down. Thank you, Ethereum. Right? So it's like, all right, are you bullish or bearish ETH here? You know what happens next. You know what happens if ETH goes up or down. So are you bullish or are you bearish Ethereum here? I mean, I presented you with some evidence, you know. I presented you with what I think is going to happen. It's a tough market though. It's a tough market. Like it is volatile. There's a lot of macro going on right now. A lot of things to look at. Why would the market go up? Why did the market go up when we had COVID and they shut down the global economy? You imagine the people buying the COVID drop in March 2020? Bitcoin hit 4K, under 4K. And 1 year later, it was just under 70K. Do you think when Bitcoin was sitting under 5K in March of 2020, anybody out there would have said with conviction Bitcoin's going to be at 69K within a year? I mean, come on now. That's crazy talk, isn't it? That's craziness. What if I told you Bitcoin would be over 200K in a year? Would you call me crazy? What if? Hmm. I'm being scolded for being bullish. Huh. Funny time we're in, huh? Yeah, no one believes it. Everybody's right about being bearish, I guess. Huh. Hmm. Funny time we live in. Where have my bulls gone? A little crypto shakeout, and everyone thinks it's the end of the world. You know. Let me help you guys with something real quick. Sometimes the mind has a way of playing tricks on us. You know. It's a shame, but it does. Sometimes it can really help to look at things a little differently. I mean, I see it. I definitely see it. Who's gonna buy Ethereum? Oh my goodness. Who's gonna buy ETH down here? People can't afford groceries. People can't afford to pay their rent. Who's gonna buy Ethereum down here? Oh, ETH is at 130 bucks. Look, the VIX just blew out to 80. Who is gonna buy Ethereum down here? People can't afford to pay for their cars and their rent. Who's gonna buy Ethereum down here? We're gonna go to 50. I'll buy it at $50. I'll buy it when it goes down to $50. Oh, we're gonna go so much lower. Oh my goodness. Oh, they shut down the economy. Oh my gosh, inflation this, blah, 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 blah. Where's all the liquidity gonna come from? Who's gonna buy this? Who's gonna buy it? Everybody. Everybody's gonna buy it. Who's gonna buy all of our Ethereum? Nobody wants it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I want to do this with you guys too. I know our minds have a way of playing tricks, but like seriously, does this look bullish to you? Like if you were looking at this chart, would you be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm gonna buy this right here. Like this is, like oh yeah, this is like the trade of the decade is like this right here, you know?" Like is that what you really think like looking at this chart, this is a bullish setup to you right here? Because when I look at this chart, I see this. Uh-oh. When I look at this chart, I see, uh-oh. Like this looks cooked. Is that bullish? I mean, if you did this, like if you did like something like this, I guess. But right here, oof. Like sometimes you have to flip the chart and play tricks on your mind. Who's gonna buy it? Who's gonna buy it? Nobody wants to buy it from you. Like ETH dropped 50% in a few months, and we had a VIX blowout to 65. All of your beta plays are down 75 to 85% and holding the floor. And ETH looks like this. This is inverted to just get your brain out of the same little complacency funk that it's in. And the chart looks like this and everybody still wants lower. You know what I say to the Ethereum bears right now? I say you're greedy. Not even just ETH, like Bitcoin too. Like I prepared for that drop, by the way. Like those of you that are in the BB Discord, like you knew about that. I didn't touch any of my boys club, but like I prepared, I put on some hedges, I sold some majors and things like that just doesn't matter if I sell, I can buy them back whenever I want. Like the BB Discord, like you guys got that heads up for me. Like this is inverted, right? But like I was de-risking like right in here. I saw what was coming. I felt as though it was more probable that we were going to take a plunge than not, and I prepared for it. And a lot of our community did as well. But my hedges are removed. I have since redeployed at the lows. Like you're going to catch a minus 50% move on ETH in a few months and be like, I need lower. I mean, what are we talking about here? That's like the most famous thing in the world is like you get the drop you were looking for and then you want more. It's like you get the pump you were looking for and then you want more. Greed works both ways. Like I buy blood. We just had blood. We had carnage. Billions in open interest wiped across the board. Additionally, funding has been negative recently on Bitcoin. Like today it was negative this morning. You're bullish this chart? This looks bullish to you? All right. Maybe you're right. I guess we'll see. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it here. Got our Discord call right now. Thanks so much for being here. Sorry I didn't get to all the comments, but hopefully you guys had a good time hanging out here. I'll see you back here again next week, guys. This was an Andy community space. I don't know. I just kind of did like a YouTube show today. I just wanted to talk about the charts and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully you guys either learned something or just had a good time hanging out, even if you didn't learn something. But thanks so much for hanging out with me, guys. For those of you that are in the BB Discord, I will see you guys in just a minute. I'm going to pop over there right now. But yeah, fingers crossed, guys. I think things should be looking up pretty soon. But anyways, thanks for being here. Check out the links in the description below if you want to learn more about how to trade or connect with me. A few options down below for you guys. But if not, I will see you guys next week. Everybody take care.